During 1915 and 1916, Britain had been subjected to air raids by German Zeppelins. Gradually, the Royal Flying Corps, the British precursor to the RAF, had found ways to deter the Zeppelins, and the raids were discontinued. The Germans had not been quiet during those years. They had developed a new long-range bomber called the Gotha. And it was in 1917 that the Gothas made their presence felt and the first raids took place. The weekend, beginning with the Friday the 25th of May 1917, was a bank holiday weekend. It was Whitsun. On the Friday evening, in Tontine Street, Folkestone, mothers were queuing up outside the shops to buy some provisions, extra provisions, for the weekend. In particular, a large queue had formed outside Stokes Brothers, the greengrocers. The mothers were queuing and chatting, and the children were playing in the street. At about 6 p.m, the sound of explosions were heard. There was no particular anxiety about this because with so many army training bases in the Folkestone area, it was thought it was perhaps the Royal Artillery practicing. The explosions came nearer and nearer, and suddenly, in Tontine Street itself, there was a single massive explosion. The scene of carnage was unbelievable. The bodies were strewn across the street. Shops were wrecked. Stokes Brothers itself was razed to the ground. Nearly 100 people, mothers and children in particular, were killed by that explosion. The explosion was caused by a bomb dropped from one of 20 Gotha bombers which flew over Folkestone that day. They had set off earlier that day from their air base in Belgium, intending to attack London. But weather conditions were not right, so they diverted to the south coast. They flew across Hythe, Shorncliffe Camp, dropping bombs, causing some deaths. But it was that bomb in Folkestone, in Tontine Street, that caused the worst of the carnage and the killing. After the raid, the bodies were taken to local hospitals and mortuaries, where the very difficult and harrowing task of identifying them was begun. In some cases, whole families had been wiped out, mothers and children. There was outrage in the country that this sort of attack could have happened. No warnings were given, and no aircraft from the RFC nor guns had challenged these Gotha bombers. After the raid began the services to commemorate the dead, there was a mass burial at Cheriton Road Cemetery. And the graves of the victims of that air raid can still be seen there today.